What's up, folks? I'm Odd, by the way, and welcome back to my archives. I have mostly kicked the crowd from last week, but I'm still a little, fatigued and just generally kind of hit with, a massive art block, so I wasn't fully sure what to do. And when that happens, I figure it's probably best to just go in and try and redraw some old art. So I have here most of my collection of my art from my early days of DeviantArt. At some point or another, whenever I find it, I need to clean my room. I will be probably adding my drive from my old laptop that includes art from 2020 on to a certain point. I actually forget. When did I get my computer? Basically before I got my desktop up to that point. So slightly newer, but already inching into about 5 years old. So, it's getting there. And it would be fun to revisit some stuff like that. I obviously have some couple-year-old stuff that I could as well. Basic premise, if you haven't seen one of these, is that I roll a random number between 1 and 4. This is old comic stuff that I won't get into right now. This folder has the least, and I think these two maybe have the most in them. So if I roll this one, it's a little bit weirder, a bit harder to supplement, but we shall see. So first I'm going to roll a number between 1 and 4 from the random number generator and generate 4. Well, that was easy. So that is going to be 2019. And this one's pretty big as well. And as you can see, or maybe you can't. Yeah, you can. In this very lower bottom left corner here is the number of items in this particular folder. So there are 58, which is a lot for 1 year, I think. I've probably made more within this year, haven't I? That's weird to think about, but okay. Let's generate 20. All right, and how many are in a row again? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh, that's easy. 20. Oh. So this is an X's character. And I don't think I want to redraw that. I might delete that later, honestly, but I don't think that I want to revisit that. Is that weird? I mean, it's just somebody else's OC who I don't talk to anymore, and that feels weird. Yeah, I'm gonna re-roll. Alright, hold on. And did you see the first one? I don't think you did. So let's see. Boop. We'll roll another number. 29. That I could probably work with. A boop. So 20. And then 9. Oh my gosh, I think I know what this is. Oh yeah, okay. This is another old drawing of Phoenix. So my last video that I did for this, I also got a drawing of Phoenix. And yeah, I think that I could definitely take another hit at this. This is, I think, I could be wrong, but this is another... Is this this the redraw? I think this is already an existing redraw. So this is, on the left, baby Phoenix, on the right, somewhat adult Phoenix. I think she was still a teenager at that time, but she's an adult now. Not that she's aged, just in story. I've aged, and I felt weird having characters that were like 16. So, but yeah, okay, I can definitely redo that. That will be a fun scene to do with. I feel like I've mentioned before, I've drawn this girl so much, but I'm willing to draw her again, and it'll be a good way to practice drawing kids again. So that should be fun and very, very story filled. So I will roll this over to Speedpaint voiceover for you guys, and I will show you what I came up with for this redraw when we get there. So see you there. So, of course, despite the fact that I intended to kind of shorten the amount of time spent by just doing the one piece, the work always extends to meet the time, or in this case, even exceed it. If you happen to catch the name of the file, or what I named the redraw up in the corner, you won't be surprised to learn that this piece was originally made with Coldplay's Yellow in mind. I have at least one song, if not whole playlist, for my characters from this story. There have been a number of massive changes made to the story just because I wanted to imagine an animatic for a song that I liked. In the case of Phoenix, it was one thing to show her as a child and an adult, but the song Yellow, in this case, kind of especially points out the relationship between her and her mentor/adoptive father, Aaron. So I did something I almost never do. I drew a man. Aaron is a character that has been in my head longer than I've been able to capably envision or draw him. As much as I change up Phoenix, I feel like she's a much less nebulous concept in my brain than Aaron. Despite that, this is probably the first time I haven't immediately hated the human art I've made in a while. I mentioned practicing drawing kids, but baby Phoenix wasn't much of a problem here. It was mostly Aaron, and even he didn't turn out too badly, in my opinion. I am always and forever mulling over clothing and hair design, so forgive me if Phoenix's design looks different from the last time I redrew her like a couple weeks ago. But let's use this fine excuse for an OC yap for me to further outline some elements of this story, Thrakos, and the characters here. Thrakos is a long-running brainchild of mine that's been with me forever. It's my baby, and I am trying now to actually develop it into something somewhat understandable. It's a pretty high fantasy concept, but exists in a kind of late 1800s vibe, particularly based on the Wild West. I've affectionately called it Cowboys and Dragons before, because, oh yeah, you bet, there are dragons too. The word Thrakos means dragon. That being said, it's also quite human-centered. One of the main elements of it is that practicing magic is, shocker, illegal. One of the main reasons is that it isn't deemed as understandable or controllable enough. Magic is basically an element in and of itself that exists everywhere, but channeling it directly requires a conduit of some sort. Magic circles, gemstones, engraved wands, all that. But there are a group of humans called magi that are the conduit. They have these magic veins called fossum around their bodies. Magi's bodies conduct the magic as a sort of defense mechanism more often than not. Therefore, though the restrictions might make sense, they also make it effectively illegal to be a magi, which is something you're born as, because an untrained magi will inevitably have a moment where their magic abilities become obvious. And because magic is also not studied, it can't be harnessed, you can see how this becomes a vicious cycle. The cruelty is kind of the point. Aaron and Phoenix are both magi with the rare privilege of having actually been trained. The information came from Arthur, effectively Phoenix's grandfather, who had a weirdly large pool of knowledge on the subject. Another aspect of this piece is also related to their shared name, Emberridge, a title that has only ever been bequeathed, not inherited in the traditional sense. Arthur was the first to take the name and made it based off of the location Phoenix is sitting in. Ember Ridge is a landmark that is named for its tendency to glow like fire at sunrise and sunset. Just to kind of dip back into the technical side of this, speaking of, I fussed with this background for quite a while because it wasn't feeling as large and far away as I wanted it to be. Phoenix and Aaron are supposed to be pretty well up in the foreground. Eventually, I stretched out the kind of bowl shape and added a hill and some trees to emphasize the sheer size of it. It also really helped with the lower half of the piece, which was quite bare for a little while. While the line "look at the stars" isn't quite as centered here, which was the original intention, they are still there in this sort of purple hour display of the cliffs. And of course, to mark the passage of time, I have both the sunrise and the sunset here. Where we enter in the story, Eren has been dead for 2 years. He was unfortunately the target of a group he tried to keep Phoenix out of the eyes of, one that has a particular interest in keeping any knowledge of magic out of the hands of magi. Of course, they do find and target her and are the big bad of the story, but I don't want to get too far into the spoilers there. Lore and exposition dumping are one thing, but if I start talking about the actual meat of the story, A, we'd be here all day, and B, it would be major spoilers for when I do, eventually, I swear, make a comic about this shit. Phoenix and Eren's relationship is really cute, though. Eren is kind of an awkward man with some trouble expressing his emotions, but Phoenix really still regards him very highly, to the degree that she doesn't really notice all that was kind of passed on to her. That's parents, though. They're not quite perfect, even if we love them. One of the major points is that everyone in the story is kind of painfully human, even if they themselves don't feel like they are. Phoenix. Yes, I'm scolding my own character who I wrote. Sometimes the projection is necessary, okay? But that is my piece for this week. I hope you like my little excuse to prattle on about my story. It's still in its pretty early development. I feel like I have to sand down about 10 years worth of teenage daydreaming to make this a somewhat more cohesive plot, but I love this story, just so much affection for it, and you'll probably see more trickling in of information as time goes. Forgive me if I ever repeat or contradict myself. I will probably do both often. Let me know what you think in the comments, as well as any other art challenges you might like to see me do in the future. At that, though, I'll leave this here, and I will see y'all next time.